counts on allies being part of it, that can work well with Coast Guard and other units. It has a boast in that interoperability, and that's why I do. Numbers do matter, sir, but it doesn't always have to be the 1 billion. You know, those 4 ships we have off Somalia, I mean, there's 12 of them sitting in the Persian Gulf, or 9 to 12. We should be moving them down there, but they're $1 billion. These things you kind of distribute around, and they're linking to a global hawk, and you can do so much more with less. And that's my take on it in simple terms. It's come a long way in the Navy. I remember when I was N51, the person who was Oppo 3 at the time left me a note that said, "Joe, here you're talking about small ships. Stop it." It's come a long way, and I think it bodes for numbers, as long as the capability attendant to it remains to be there. And I'm a bit concerned about it because at the time, if you remember, the antennas on the LCS, and now I'm getting into stuff I shouldn't be in, couldn't do the correct communications. We're going to put an ASW team of just a few people on that ship, and they were going to reach back via satellite for all the analysis. Well, at least when I was departing, they had not built and had not building the correct antennas to handle that broadband type of capability. And that's the kind of capability, sir, that I'm worried will get the platform without the attendant, thing, the cyberspace, because the hull becomes most important. And we can't go back to the 70s again. Not just in numbers, but even the hulls we had didn't have that.
Last question, Congressman. Congressman, you mentioned the beach. Secretary Gates said he's going to look at the whole idea of whether we really need the old amphibious capability that the Marines made famous in World War II. Do we need it?
I think we've gone too far into continuing to purchase the amphibious shipping that we have. I think there was a number of years ago where a different track could have been taken towards sea basing, with still the preeminence of the Marine Corps would have been. It was a very radical, but I believe necessary change that would have voted with the Army a true joint force like we had in World War II in amphibious warfare. Does it help and is it useful? Yes. But we're not talking sea basing in the MPS sense where you have to pull into a port that's safe, that's protected by guided, ballistic missile defense to unload. And I cannot foresee the day. Can they be useful, off Somalia as we did, as we retreated our forces or as we went ashore? Yes, but we could have done that with a much more, different type of vessel that could have boated more at sea. So I think the sea basing concept of having stuff at sea, large, and then ramming forces out there quickly, loading up, and being able to lift up, but it means some radical changes. One, operationally means the military is going to have to look at heavy lift aircraft, helicopters of heavy lift. I mean, that's a problem when our 53s go away. LCS is a real problem. The Navy has prided itself, and we did a study when I was still in the Navy with NAVC to see if we could change this, and it could. LCS shows up. It's got a mine warfare anti-submarine warfare capability. All of a sudden the war begins and you want to do a mine warfare capability. It's modular, but the Navy is actually going to pull that ship off the front line, travel all the way to Japan, change it out, and come all the way back. We pride ourselves of being there before and at the first shot, opening up the door and bringing them on in. But one of the hinges has to go back all the way to Japan to change out the module. Where's the heavy lift helicopters on the 20-ton TEUs that NAVC did a study on to say transfer it at sea from a sea basing ship on all that? So that's it. Second is you got to change the acquisition process. That sea basing wasn't driven by requirements. It was driven by the acquisition side of the U.S. Navy. You need, as this CNO I believe is attempting to do, to have requirements be brought more to driving where the Navy is. There's an inherent tension there, and depending upon personalities at times, there's also tension between your PEOs and your NAVC. Who does the PEOs work for? And I feel one of the prostitution of that process is what led us, I think, to have acquisition drive the sea basing decision on all that. As I wrap up, Sir, I'm very honored to be here. I don't know what I added to it except to say I can't say I'm right. I mean, when I left the Navy, there must have been this much Navy warfare knowledge. I had about that much. But I think when you get senior, you try to make judgments and assessing from what you've seen. But I think we also have tools now. And I don't want to overstress modeling. It doesn't replace the warrior. It does not. But I think there's ways to begin to show Congress and ourselves that if we move things around and see what the facts show us in a joint way, we can truly, I think, come out in a better force capability. Second, this Paul Mill area for the Navy and ballistic missile defense is critical. I mean, if you look at the cost of that system in Poland, you need the radar in Czechoslovakia. And you see how Poland has demanded a lot, if you've watched the negotiations for that site, not just in our money of putting it there, but a lot more. And you say that, well, we want this for Iran, but if you could think that you have a chance of having Iran not have a weapon, you begin to see, I think, once again, the Navy's vision not just being war, but how to prevent war in a much broader, strategic way. I mean, the C&O Burks of the world, that's including the young Burke over here, but the C&O Burke of the world really had a vision for that Paul Mill role of the Navy. And I think its best argument is to reclaim that space, because that's where we are in a lot of what's going on. It's not about a China, really. That's a high-end mark that we just don't want to have. It's about all this in here we do every day and how you help the policies by military force is final. Last thing I'll bring up is I have the best job in the world if you can't be in the Navy. I loved every minute of it. And my daughter's here today because of the military. And I went into politics for one reason, to pay back this nation. If it wasn't for TRICARE, although I have a claims problem right now. $696, I cut my hand. But my take on it is my job is tremendous because, as I said at the beginning, I've watched some of these other Congress members, and some do their jobs in different ways. But the variety of issues you have access to, or Eric here, and you have access to, all these think tanks around. And you go from credit card to defense to Pakistan to healthcare to energy. You begin to have a broader perspective of how healthcare ties into our military. One small example. 22% of the kids today who graduate don't meet the physical requirements for the military. We have another wonderful pilot program of nutrition. 23 million high school, middle-aged kids are obese or overweight. We have a pilot program on just covering everybody in Philadelphia, because 65% of them, you buy it in bulk. Why just do 65%? You get cheaper, problem, healthy nutrition and all. I guess what I'm saying is, if people are out there and our office, and you know me, we work hard, we are very open to people who come in our door and have issues from hardcore defense issues, but there's others out there here that also come across from physical training or healthcare, TRICARE. We're very open in my office to hearing good ideas. We moved one of the things I'm most proud about is moving $29 million for autism in the defense budget. I was the only one who voted for it in the House Armed Services Committee, so I took it to the floor and it got through, a little more public. And because there's 8,500 kids in the military that are autistic. You know how many get care? When we say we take care of our military families? 700. I have an officer on my staff, and he talks about it, so I probably call his child autism. He moves around. It's a hard time to get care for them. And TRICARE doesn't cover it well. And so I guess what I'm telling everybody is it's a great job. I love the Navy at the moment, but if there are other issues besides defense, we're always open to it, because that came from a wife of a brother of a classmate of mine about this autistic issue. And I'd be very happy to help out anything that's good to move forward. Thank you very much.